Star Wars was a big influence on me because it came out in '77. I was born in '66, so I was right at the right age for that thing to hit. And it was before all the hype. You know, it was the first to kind of the popcorn blockbusters. You had that, and then you had Spielberg's films. So you had like Jaws and that. I remember seeing a commercial. I remember seeing like a picture in the newspaper, like the New York Post or something, about the movie. And it was after it was out already, and it was like, this looks pretty cool. Or it was coming out, I forget. And I saw the picture of like Chewbacca and Han Solo, and whatever the headline was, I was intrigued. And I went to see it, and then it was just like, it just pinned my ears back. In this case, since there's real things on the set, we have real cameras and real people. The sets are bigger than they were on Jungle Book, but it's essentially the same formula. And now instead of having a green screen that you have to move around in light, which took forever, and that was really the frustration that led to these innovations, which was how could we do that without green screens next time? And so that led to, you have a green stage, you have pre-lit green areas that you could expose, and then it turned into these video walls where you could have green just behind the actor, and then interactive light, which we used on Jungle Book also for shadows and things on the characters, which we were inspired by, like Gravity, where they had all those video panels. So it's like we took all the technology that I've been messing around with from all those other projects and applying it to a very specific application that would work for this.
I think Star Wars is such a part of people's lives, and it's something that they just see now on a regular basis, that when you say George Lucas and he created it, I don't think people give enough full value to what that means. I like to think I do, but I worked with him, so I've seen him create it. I've seen the person that comes up with the lines and the dialogue and understands Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker in a very deep level, because those characters are a part of him. And for my part, you know, joining Lucasfilm, I always respected that. I never felt that Star Wars is something that was mine. I felt privileged to be a part of telling the story, you know, and we would talk about that, and, you know, but a helmet at the end of the day is a helmet. And I've shown that helmet quite a bit on Rebels and Clone Wars. And so there are fans that get the language of it, that it's, you know, a tool, it's a piece of equipment. But to the average person, if you show them that helmet, if they say anything, they'll say it's Boba Fett. So we immediately started to draw visual, you know, differences between the two characters. Our character is much more bulked up than Boba ever was. His armor is actually quite different if you look at it. His helmet's actually different, little different traits to it. The colors of it, you know, all these things point out at little differences. There are similarities, which are almost unavoidable, but we wanted to tell a story with somebody where we had kind of more of a blank page. For me, I felt with the pilot, my job was to show this guy as he is, as he has been, a hardened kind of weather-beaten person that, you know, has been through things we can't imagine and is just doing a job. And his job is hunting down beings and turning them in. The consequences of that, the morality of it, I get paid, you know, and the pilot slowly chips away at that idea, especially when he meets the Ugnaught. And this little, you know, being is suddenly helping him and then challenging him. And I think it starts to make the gears in Mando's head wonder, what am I doing here, and where is my line? What I've lost this idea of, you know, being a mercenary or being a the key is you hire good people. You can get caught up in what their talents are. I mean, obviously, to have done the work that they've all done, they're all really talented. But the big difference is, what kind of person are you? And they're all just really wonderful people that are easy to get along with, easy to work with. We all get in a room, and I think because like this is so new to many of us, that we all kind of get together on it.
There are such universal themes in the Star Wars stories, and ironically, I think people feel that it, you know, despite being fantasy, science fiction, it reflects the world we actually live in its inclusiveness and diversity and conflict and themes of good against evil. It's fascinating to experience that as a child, you know, to have your imagination so enriched by these stories. And then now as an adult to look back and rekindle my relationship to Star Wars, and in particular those Star Wars movies and the tone of this series, which I find is a little bit more Empire Strikes Back. It reflects so much what our actual reality as human beings on this planet is. I remember getting a call from my agent saying that Jon Favreau wants to meet you regarding a Star Wars project. And so I immediately said, you know, when and where. I wanted to meet Jon Favreau. I didn't care what he wanted me to do. I had no idea what it was, whether it was a feature or, you know, a cereal box. I had no idea. Go and I meet Jon at his office, and he invites me into this room that is basically, you know, corner to corner, covered in story illustrations of this project that he's working on. And there are all of these incredible images of a Mandalorian and just wedge me into those two iconic characters, because he's also what I love the opportunity to make him as human and as accessible as possible, which is strange to say because it's impossible to get to him because he's covered in armor from head to toe. And yet, the idea is that, you know, he's relatable. We're all kind of covered in our own armor, you know, and terrified of taking that armor off. And that's the thing that crosses him over into a character that we're all going to really want to follow. I couldn't feel in better hands than in the hands of Gina Carano, who plays Cara Dune in the series, who is, you know, a band of misfits kind of come together in this first season, and she being the other primary character in the first season, who is, you know, the toughest and the most dangerous and the most human, and she is also a survivor, a loner, and a reject. And you know how we draw to each other, us loners and rejects, and she's the one who can kick everybody's butt. Able to do this show without Dave Filoni, I think he is the truest lover of the material. We can all try to compete to his level of love. Is just the best word for it, for the world of Star Wars, and we would all lose against him.
To me, in the most basic storyline, is about a man who's been following a way of life and has that way of life sort of upended by the introduction of the baby, and it sort of changes his life. And I think he's reevaluating his priorities and what means something to him in his life in the world. So I think it's really sort of about a man discovering something about himself that he had never known until he met the child. Episode 3, at its core, is essentially a Western. It's a cross between a Western and a samurai movie. And when I very first came in and I got the script, that was my first thought, and that's been a very strong reference that Jon's given us throughout the show.
As I became a bit more of a student of filmmaking, I really began to appreciate the brilliance of Star Wars and what Lucas had created. And then I, of course, started to read more and the hero's journey and all those kinds of, you know, books, and began to really appreciate Joe Campbell and what he was saying and understand a lot more. Then, for me, it became, wow, you know, it was beyond being groundbreaking, Star Wars was. It was, in its own way, again, like a crack into some sort of other universe that I hadn't been exposed to, you know? So it was pretty phenomenal, not only what it was at the time, but what it has become. As an actor, when you step into something and you get a chance to work with someone who is talented in front of and behind the camera, and who really understands first of all, the process of making the project, the movie or television, whatever it is, but then also has this affinity for being in front of the camera as an actor. There is someone that you can feel comfortable with talking to because the language he understands, you know? And so any thoughts, ideas, questions, bemusements, whatever it is that you have, you know, he really will engage. My character, Grief, which is an interesting name, 2 E's, not an I and an E, but he's, in my opinion, a businessman, and he is looking to get a particular product for the highest bidder, or for a client who is looking for something or needs to have something returned, whatever the case may be. And this businessman supplies basically those people who will go out and hunt down whatever his clients are looking for. And so Grief, in this particular story, among others, hires the Mandalorian to go out and bring back a bounty. And the bounty is worth quite a bit more, I think, than even Grief knew in the beginning. Much of the Star Wars projects is that, yes, there is the Western. It is from the West, as we know it, that particular type of storytelling. But there's also, again, in all of this, there's this very Eastern kind of brushstroke or brushstrokes that go on. So, you know, there is this kind of the Buddha looking for enlightenment and searching and searching and searching, and finally settling under the tree and realizing that the search wasn't out there, the search was in here.
Having seen the screenplay, I immediately had the feeling, yes, there was something of substance there. Storytelling is something which has a perennial stability, probably since Paleolithic times, people sitting around a campfire and telling stories. So this is really good in storytelling, and it has a lot of openings for complete fantasy. And I found the dialogues and the constellations of figures in the film quite interesting. And I had the feeling, yes, that's something I should do. They all know what they are doing. They all have vision, and I think it's basically Jon Favreau's vision that guides the whole thing. And it's very, very pleasant to work on a set where everybody is focused and calm. Never a loud word. I've never heard a loud word. That's beautiful. This new technology brings filmmaking back where it has been and where it should be. You can pick up a camera on your shoulder and do some sort of a choreography between your actors, and the parallaxes of the background will be organized. You see the set, and the actors see the set, and they sense it and they feel it. And this is fantastic. Filmmaking back where it should be. I come without any baggage of knowledge of previous elements of the story or characters and situations, doesn't matter. And of course, the real Star Wars fans, they come anyway, but you don't take anything for granted. You better give everything that's in you. You give your best. Because there's more than the fans. I mean, the fans see everything anyway, but you have to find new audiences in different countries where Star Wars hasn't been that much present. And you have to expand the mythology. It is mythology of our days, and it's very beautiful, very beautiful.